The Congo has just released a lot of people from jail. Congo, Africa, just released a lot of people from their prisons and jails and brought them into the United States of America. This is what's happening to our country, and it's not sustainable by anyone.
Everything changed the moment those words were spoken. Government hotlines lit up, doors slammed shut. Leaders stopped smiling. United States accusation aimed at the heart of the Congo has triggered a global political alarm, and now diplomats are operating in shadows. This is no ordinary headline. This is a silent war of power, trust, and fear unfolding right now.
The world didn't ease into the moment. It crashed into it. 1 second, global news feeds scrolled with ordinary political noise, and the next, they detonated with a single statement powerful enough to reshape diplomatic fault lines. The White House briefing room, normally a space of tense predictability, transformed into the eye of a geopolitical storm after reporters were summoned without warning. No schedule, no hints, no leaks, just a sudden alert that something urgent was coming. When the President of the United States entered the room, everything changed. People sensed immediately that this wasn't about routine affairs or policy updates. There was a pressure in the air, a deep, metallic heaviness that made even the camera operators straighten. The President didn't smile, didn't greet anyone, didn't pause. He walked straight to the podium, jaw locked, eyes sharp, like a man who wasn't just announcing news, he was detonating it. Then he said the sentence that launched the world into panic. We have strong reason to believe the Democratic Republic of Congo has knowingly released high-risk prisoners who may now be attempting to enter or influence the United States. For 3 full seconds, no one breathed. Then the shouting began, questions flying so chaotically that no microphone could isolate a single one. Analysts burst onto live broadcasts mid-sentence. Governments began dialing their embassies. Commentators abandoned their usual calm, replaced by urgent speculation. The shockwave traveled from Washington to Brussels to Beijing to Kinshasa within minutes, each region reacting as if the world had just slipped onto a new track. And behind all of this, within the steel-secured halls of the White House, officials were still arguing about the intelligence behind the president's words. Hours earlier, deep in the Situation Room, senior advisors and intelligence officers huddled around a dim table lit only by screens. A report had been delivered that morning. A report so vague yet alarming that no one could agree whether it was meaningful or catastrophic. The document claimed that a Congolese detention facility in a remote region had reported missing inmates. The description of the inmates was inconsistent. Some sources claimed they were linked to armed networks. Others suggested they were political prisoners who had been quietly detained. A few whispers claimed they were members of criminal syndicates capable of moving across borders undetected. Nothing was confirmed. Every detail was contested. But uncertainty is a dangerous spark in a room full of political fuel. The president was briefed, and something shifted in him the moment he read the report. Some believed he saw an opportunity to display strength amid other pressures. Others thought he genuinely feared the potential consequences of inaction. To those in the room, it was unclear whether he was reacting strategically or instinctively. But his decision came fast. He would go public. No further verification. No follow-up intelligence cycle. No international consultation. When staff tried to slow him down, he gave the same response each time. The country deserves to know. We cannot risk another unknown threat. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, the capital of the Democratic Republic of Congo erupted into its own form of controlled chaos. Phones rang non-stop in government offices. Advisors rushed through corridors. Ministers demanded emergency briefings. Outside, the streets buzzed with a mixture of confusion, anger, and disbelief as the accusation spread through every radio station and social feed. Inside the Palais de la Nation, the Congolese president convened a private emergency meeting. His advisors spoke urgently and over one another, each offering interpretations, warnings, or attempts to decode what Washington intended. "This makes no sense," one whispered. "This is political aggression," another said sharply. "This could destabilize us," a third warned. "This must be about something they want," someone murmured quietly. Their president listened, calm but visibly hardened by frustration. When he finally spoke, the room fell silent. "We released no prisoners. and we will not allow our nation to be used as a scapegoat for global theatrics. His official statement to the world followed shortly after, firm, dignified, and unwavering. He rejected the accusation outright, called for immediate clarification, and demanded transparency about the intelligence Washington claimed to possess. But beneath the diplomatic language, a storm was gathering. Confusion turned into suspicion. Suspicion turned into anger. And anger rapidly intensified into something deeper and more volatile. Fear that Congo had been pulled into a geopolitical struggle far larger and more complex than anyone had anticipated. In the hours following the accusation, speculation spread faster than facts. Commentators crafted theories so quickly they barely paused to breathe. Some insisted the intelligence hinted at a rogue prisoner release orchestrated by corrupt local officials. Others claimed the United States was preparing to justify future sanctions or military involvement in Central Africa. Some believed it was part of a larger struggle for influence over Congo's mineral wealth. Others whispered about external powers fanning the tension for their own strategic gain. None of it was confirmed. But the world rarely waits for confirmation. In the United States, inside a restricted intelligence viewing chamber, a classified video clip became the center of internal debate. No public official had seen it. Only a handful of analysts were granted access. The footage, allegedly captured by a private surveillance drone belonging to a European partner agency, showed a convoy of trucks moving through dense, humid forest under cover of night. Headlights were dimmed. The movement was organized but discreet. No insignias, no flags, no markings, no identifiable faces. Only silhouettes shifting through the darkness. To some, it was evidence of a covert extraction operation. To others, it was the transportation of resources, not people. To skeptics, it was simply a meaningless clip misinterpreted under pressure. Yet there it was, at the heart of a global crisis. A grainy, silent ghost of a video whose meaning no one could confidently define. And somehow, it became the fuel behind one of the most explosive accusations in recent political memory. As intelligence officials argued internally, the president remained firm. The world needed to be warned, he insisted. America must act before a potential threat escalated. His advisors exchanged looks, some worried, some conflicted, some aligned with his resolve. None could fully predict the outcome of the path he had chosen. The crisis deepened when the two presidents, of the United States and of Congo, held a private, secured phone call. The exchange was calm on the surface, almost diplomatic, but every word carried the sharp weight of veiled confrontation. Your claim has destabilized our region and placed us under global scrutiny, the Congolese leader said with steady control. What exactly are you accusing us of? We reacting on intelligence that suggests a coordinated release of individuals who could pose a threat, the U.S. President replied. We have done no such thing. Our sources indicate otherwise. Then your sources are misleading you, or you are choosing to misunderstand them. Silence, heavy and volatile, stretched between them. Without agreement, or even a plan for further communication, the call ended. Those who listened on both sides understood the gravity instantly. The two nations had moved from confusion to conflict, and the next steps would determine the direction of global alliances. As dawn broke across continents, reactions poured in from every corner of the world. African Union leaders expressed outrage, calling the accusation destabilizing and unverified. European governments urged caution and requested additional evidence. Asian powers remained silent, watching cautiously from the shadows, analyzing the shifting political terrain. Russia and China both issued carefully worded statements expressing concern but subtly indicating willingness to support Congo if diplomatic pressure intensified. Markets reacted sharply. Newsrooms scrambled for leaks, analysts, and experts who could parse the tangled mess of information. Social platforms lit up with theories ranging from plausible to completely absurd. Suddenly, Congo, a nation already carrying the weight of internal challenges, became the center of a global narrative it had never asked for. Meanwhile, far from the cameras and political podiums, whispers spread through regions of eastern Congo. Unusual movements of trucks, sightings of foreign observers, helicopters passing over rural zones. Some believed these were normal military patrols. Others claimed they indicated something concealed beneath the surface, perhaps even the origin of the confusion. But nothing was certain. Nothing was verified. What was clear was that the world now found itself caught between two powerful narratives. One from Washington, fueled by fear and urgency, and one from Kinshasa, grounded in rejection and frustration. The truth, somewhere between shadows and speculation, remained elusive. And the crisis was only beginning. The tension thickened as hours turned into a full day. International news cycles operated like wildfire, consuming every fragment of information and speculation, amplifying fears in a way no briefing could ever contain. From New York to Nairobi, journalists pieced together what little they could, framing it in narratives that were often louder than reality. Each headline was sharper, each broadcast more urgent, and each expert more certain about something no one truly knew. Inside the corridors of power in Washington, advisors debated the ramifications. Some argued that the president's statement, though explosive, had been necessary, a preemptive move to secure America's national safety. Others warned that the accusation risked destabilizing not only regional politics, but also long-standing alliances. The most cautious voices urged restraint, suggesting a multilateral approach that might avoid confrontation. But the president, resolute and unyielding, brushed aside these warnings, insisting that the world could not wait for perfect information when potential danger loomed. Meanwhile, in Kinshasa, the atmosphere was equally fraught. Government officials convened in late-night sessions, reviewing border reports, detention records, and internal communications. The Congolese president demanded clarity, accountability, and immediate diplomatic outreach. Yet even as he orchestrated defensive measures, the global spotlight created invisible pressure, exposing weaknesses and stirring anxiety. It was not just the accusation itself. It was the perception, the media firestorm, the potential for misunderstanding that could cascade into real-world consequences. The international stage became a theater of shadows. Diplomats scrambled for explanations, security analysts debated plausible scenarios, and intelligence agencies shared fragments of surveillance in urgent, encrypted exchanges. Each party sought confirmation or refutation, but in a conflict defined by partial truths and unknown variables, certainty was impossible. The result was an escalating spiral. Speculation fed statements, statements fueled fear, and fear transformed into headlines capable of shaping policy in real time. Back in Washington, the president convened a series of private briefings with senior officials. The discussions were tense, almost cinematic, as each aide weighed the risks of releasing more information against the dangers of silence. Classified video footage, satellite images, and fragmented intelligence reports were laid out across tables, each more ambiguous than the last. Analysts argued over interpretations, debating whether the movements depicted were prisoners, rebels, or simple logistical convoys. The debates were long, sharp, and sometimes bitter, but no one could definitively settle the question. Yet the president pressed forward, guided not by certainty, but by a conviction that action, even if controversial, was essential. The Congolese side mirrored the urgency. Officials mapped every border checkpoint, verified every detention record, and examined every surveillance report available within the country. International partners were contacted, not as allies, but as witnesses to reinforce Congo's innocence. Every statement, every declaration, and every press release was crafted with care, balancing indignation against diplomacy. The world was watching, and any misstep could be magnified into crisis. Yet beneath the polished rhetoric, a sense of unease lingered. A single misinterpreted action could ignite confrontation, and no one could predict who would react first. Rumors began to circulate, creating a layer of paranoia that spanned continents. Analysts speculated about secret networks moving through remote jungles, about shadow alliances forming in silent corridors, and about prisoners or operatives being moved under the cover of darkness. Each theory, plausible or fantastical, carried weight precisely because official verification was absent. The power of suggestion became a tool, and the global audience responded with fascination and fear, drawn into a narrative that seemed more cinematic than reality, yet somehow capable of influencing actual policy. The president's team began framing potential strategies for international response. The idea of sanctions, covert monitoring, or diplomatic pressure was discussed in hushed tones. Each option carried enormous risk, both politically and strategically. Every move would be scrutinized, every action interpreted as either confirmation of threat or provocation. The president, however, remained steadfast, believing that decisive action, even amid uncertainty, was necessary to protect national security. Advisors who hesitated were dismissed or sidelined, leaving only those who shared his sense of urgency in critical decision-making roles. Meanwhile, in Kinshasa, the Congolese president faced mounting pressure both domestically and internationally. Citizens, though unaware of the full intelligence claims, reacted to media portrayals, stirring public discourse that could easily turn hostile. Opposition leaders seized the opportunity to challenge his administration's handling of national security. Foreign diplomats pressured for clarity. And through it all, the president maintained a balance of composure and determination, rejecting accusations without escalation while quietly preparing contingency plans. It was a delicate dance of diplomacy, a performance of control under the scrutiny of a global audience. Across Africa, regional leaders convened emergency consultations. The African Union released statements urging verification and caution, highlighting the potential destabilizing effect of unverified allegations on a continent already navigating complex political landscapes. Neighboring nations monitored their borders, increased intelligence operations, and communicated quietly with both Kinshasa and Washington. The sense of urgency was universal, yet interpretations varied widely. Each country weighed its own interests, alliances, and potential risks, contributing to a web of tension that extended far beyond the initial accusation. Social media amplified every detail, confirmed or otherwise. Analysts, bloggers, and casual observers interpreted intelligence fragments, eyewitness accounts, and even inconclusive video footage, weaving narratives that traveled faster than any official statement. Fear and fascination mingled in real time, creating a global atmosphere where perception often outweighed fact. In many ways, the digital sphere became a battlefield, a space where rumors held as much power as verified intelligence, and where narrative control could be more consequential than physical action. As the hours passed, international organizations began proposing frameworks for dialogue and investigation. Calls for independent verification and multilateral cooperation emerged from some corners, while others suggested that the U.S. had acted responsibly in raising awareness of potential threats. Every perspective carried weight, and yet none could resolve the uncertainty at the core of the situation. Congo's denial, Washington's insistence, and the ambiguity of the available intelligence created a triangle of tension that stretched across continents. Behind the scenes, intelligence agencies on both sides continued their work. Analysts sifted through satellite data, examined communications intercepts, and reviewed border reports. Yet, even with extensive resources, confirming or refuting the alleged prisoner release remained impossible. Each shred of data could be interpreted in multiple ways, and each new report threatened to either clarify or complicate the narrative further. In this uncertainty, strategic calculations became both urgent and dangerous, as decision-makers had to act without complete knowledge, a scenario that can destabilize even the most prepared administrations. The world watched as diplomacy and strategy intertwined with media spectacle. The U.S. president, firm in his conviction, continued to broadcast caution and concern, emphasizing the potential threat and signaling that America would act if necessary. The Congolese president maintained a stance of dignified refusal, appealing to international law, sovereignty, and reason. The tension created a cinematic standoff, a battle of narratives more than armies, yet no less impactful in its consequences. Markets shifted subtly as uncertainty rippled into economic spheres. Investors, analysts, and governments assessed risk, reacting not only to potential conflict, but also to the perceived stability of Central Africa. Regional economies felt the pressure, while multinational corporations paused operations and reevaluated strategies. Even minor events, such as troop movements or border inspections, were magnified under the intense scrutiny of a nervous global audience. In private corridors of power, discussions about potential responses, covert or diplomatic, continued at a frenetic pace. Risk assessments were layered with speculation, history, and intuition. Advisors debated whether escalation or de-escalation would serve long-term objectives. Some warned that premature action could trigger conflict, while others argued that failure to act might embolden adversaries or invite criticism. The decisions, delicate and consequential, balanced on the edge of incomplete information, amplifying tension with every passing hour. As night fell over Kinshasa and Washington alike, a sense of unresolved urgency remained. The accusation, now global news, had already altered political and social landscapes. International actors, media, and ordinary citizens were caught in a swirl of conjecture, fear, and curiosity. The Congo, already navigating complex domestic and regional challenges, was thrust into a spotlight that magnified both real and imagined threats. The United States, asserting caution and readiness, had signaled to the world that potential dangers would not be ignored. Both nations were locked in a high-stakes standoff, one defined by intelligence, perception, and narrative rather than open conflict, yet capable of reshaping alliances, policies, and strategies. The following days would test diplomacy, intelligence, and leadership in unprecedented ways. Emergency meetings, classified briefings, and media responses continued without pause. Each statement, movement, and rumor carried weight, influencing perceptions and triggering reactions worldwide. Analysts warned that even minor miscalculations could escalate tension into crisis. Political strategists, diplomats, and intelligence officers recognized that the stakes were immense. Every action or inaction would be scrutinized, dissected, and remembered. Throughout the chaos, a singular truth persisted. No one truly knew what had happened or what might come next. The grainy video footage remained ambiguous. Intelligence reports were incomplete and contested. The motivations behind both the alleged prisoner release and the U.S. response were clouded by layers of political calculation and speculation. Yet despite, or perhaps because of, this uncertainty, the world was watching with bated breath, caught between fear, fascination, and the ever-present lure of drama on the global stage. In the digital realm, hashtags surged. Hashtags like hashtag Congo crisis, hashtag US accusation, and hashtag global shock became trending worldwide. While news outlets aired panels of experts debating what the footage could mean, how likely the alleged release was, and what consequences might unfold. Public interest and anxiety intensified as commentators speculated on everything from intelligence failures to covert operations. In this environment, perception had become reality, and reality itself remained frustratingly elusive. For the leaders involved, the consequences were immediate. The U.S. president faced domestic scrutiny, political allies pressing for clarity, and international eyes watching every decision. The Congolese president navigated internal and regional pressure, balancing denial with diplomacy, asserting sovereignty without provoking confrontation. Each leader operated in a space defined by uncertainty, media spectacle, and the constant awareness that global attention magnifies every misstep. As days passed, the situation remained tense. Diplomatic channels buzzed, analysts worked overtime, and the world awaited clarity that had yet to emerge. Every action, every statement, every unverified rumor contributed to an atmosphere of suspense and urgency. The accusation, initially a single sentence from a podium, had evolved into a global phenomenon, a narrative that intertwined perception, politics, and power. Its consequences would ripple far beyond the immediate moment, affecting international relations, regional stability, and global perceptions of both nations. The world had entered a new chapter, one in which uncertainty ruled, and every decision was amplified by scrutiny, speculation, and suspicion. The story of the alleged prisoner release and the U.S. accusation was no longer just an incident. It had become a defining geopolitical event, one that tested diplomacy, intelligence, and leadership under the most extreme conditions. Every player, from world leaders to analysts to ordinary citizens, now participated in a drama that was both real and constructed, unfolding in real time, shaping perception and policy alike. And somewhere between Washington and Kinshasa, between secret intelligence reports and public declarations, the shadow of tension lingered, unseen yet palpable, a reminder that in the world of high-stakes geopolitics, perception, fear, and narrative often matter as much as facts themselves. The stage was set, the players were in motion, and the world watched, uncertain, captivated, and profoundly aware that the next move could change everything.